Should events in history be censored, changed, or even erased because we don't like to think about them? Some things that have happened in our past are so inhuman, so ugly, we don't like to look at them. But look at them we should. So today, let's look at Maus, the Holocaust, and the graphic novel that was banned. So, obvious warning here. Today we're going to be talking about the Holocaust, and we'll be talking about some pretty violent things. There'll be mention of suicide, child murder, obviously the horrible murder of millions of people. So if that's not something that you feel you can handle right now, go ahead and click off, and I will see you in a different video. Maus is a graphic novel written by Art Spiegelman. It was serialized between 1980 and 1991. I'm not going to go too in-depth into all the plot points because it is a lot. And honestly, I would just encourage you to read it because although obviously very dark and not a subject matter a lot of people like or feel like they can handle, I highly suggest it. It's a good read. It's easily digestible, which I think is how he meant to write it. And just with everything else I want to touch on, I feel like it would be a lot. So Maus is the story of Art's father, Vladek, who is a Holocaust survivor, as is Art's mother, Anya. I think that's how you say it. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. That's how I read it the entire time. The graphic novel goes back and forth between present day of Art asking Vladek questions about his time in the camps and throughout the war, and like doing stuff with his father now and with his fiance, and then the graphic novel goes back, showing you what Vladek went through in the start of the war in the camps and his journey to freedom. The graphic novel explores the start of the war, the camps, racism, grief, guilt, all in a very creative yet brutal way. The Germans are drawn as cats. The Jewish people are mice, thus the name Maus. French people are frogs, which is touched on in a conversation between Art and his fiance, who is French, and she converted to Judaism. So she is drawn as a mouse. So it's joked that it is like a racist thing to draw French people as frogs. I don't know. Maybe it was above my head. I don't know. Polish people are pigs. There's even an African American person drawn as a dog. I felt that Maus portrayed things very believably. Like, even though Vladek, Art's father, is a Holocaust survivor, and you have all these horrible things that happened to him, and he was very clever in the ways that he manipulated guards and survived, and you feel like you should be rooting for this character throughout the graphic novel. You really don't like him. I mean, he's a human being, you know, and I think that's accurately portrayed because Vladek is a lot to deal with. He's very eccentric. He has obviously severe PTSD. He's very critical of everyone around him and the way they do things, and he's so severe with money, how he spends his money, how other people spend their money, which is obviously a PTSD reaction. He's a hoarder, and that's a reaction from the camps, having to hoard everything just to survive. And he's just not a very nice person most of the time. And I mean, I get that, you know. You get that. He's a human being who survived horrible things. But yeah, you just kind of feel weird because you're like, I should be rooting for this guy. But you're like, man, he's kind of a dick. I mean, he's also very racist. And I mean, at least maybe I need to look into this more. I don't know. Maybe I didn't think it through enough. I don't know. I just felt like, as a person who went through that, like, how could you be racist? I mean, you went through the most horrible racist thing ever. Like, how could you be racist? You know, you think you would have that empathy, but, you know, you kind of see it. Like, I mean, especially towards Germans, you think you would be horribly, racist against Germans. But, I mean, he has a very strong racism towards African American people. Like, they're driving down the road and there's a African American guy, a dog, trying to hitchhike, and he's like, oh, don't let him in this car. And, like, they have groceries and he's holding on to them to make sure the dog doesn't steal them. Like, he's horribly racist. And yeah, I don't know. Like, you have this immense sympathy for Vladik, for what he went through, and then you're like, you don't have sympathy for the way he acts. It's just, I don't know. It's very weird and conflicting, but very real. I don't know. It just feels very real. And you really feel for Art, the son, because he is just trying to record his father's story, and he's having to deal with just his father, I mean, tearing down the way he wants to live his life, and dealing with all of Vladik's eccentricities, and just wishing his mother was still there to tell her side of the story of the camps, what she went through, and just to still have her around. But his mother committed suicide. And that brings us to why this graphic novel is banned. So in January of this year, we're still dealing with this stuff. A school board in Tennessee wanted to ban Mouse for rough, objectionable language and a drawing of a nude woman. Which, I'm sorry. Language and the drawing of a nude mouse, not a woman. Though yes, I guess I'll give it to you. She was a female mouse. Is why you're banning it? Not the German soldier that took a child by the feet and banged it against a wall till it died because it was crying. Not all the other murder, the gassing, the mice digging their own grave and then ending up in the grave the next day. Not all the other murder. Not the fact that the mom committed suicide. The fact that there was a drawing of a naked mouse. I'm not for banning books anyway. But at least have a good reason. And let me just show you the naked woman. It's not sexy. And I hope to God it's not getting kids worked up. It's literally a drawing of his dead mother in a tub. Which that's not even cited for being like nudity and violence. Nope, just nudity. And that's why they want to ban it. Not racism, not violence, not horrible violence, not suicide, offensive language, and a nude woman. Now this was brought up to be banned by an 8th grade. And I'm assuming below, like 8th grade and below. I didn't go to public school. I don't know when y'all started learning about the Holocaust. I don't even remember when I started learning about the Holocaust, to be real. And I can almost see not wanting a 13-year-old to have this in their curriculum. Okay, sure. But this definitely belongs in high school. Just because something is ugly or reminds us that humans can be truly evil doesn't mean we shouldn't look it in the eye and say, I don't want this to ever happen again. Since people want to ban it and keep people from hearing this, let me hit you with some numbers. 1.3 million men, women, children, babies went into Auschwitz. That's just Auschwitz. 1.1 million of them did not come out alive. That's a million people, humans. That number should shatter your heart. Because it did mine. I have a hard time with stories like this, even fiction that I read, because I have a habit of imagining that I'm one of the characters and I'm just trying to imagine living with that daily fear of like, I'm not getting out of here alive, or what if today is the day I get gassed? Like Hunger Games and all those stories, like those are fiction, and even those books, like they get to me because it's like imagining really being in that situation of like, this is actually my life and it could end any second. But this actually happened to real people who went about their days every day not realizing that their lives were going to end like this. This was the reality of millions of people back in the 1940s, and we should not let people erase that from our libraries and our schools. Some people may think that they're erasing history or ugliness, but I feel like they're erasing our chance to empathize and grieve, and our chance to try to not ever go back to that inhumanity. When you read about what was done and you realize how huge that number, it's a number that our human brains have trouble even wrapping around. And those were all people like us, like you and I, that died for no reason. That should make you feel something. And that shouldn't be squashed because people on school boards or parents are afraid their kids are going to feel something. That's terrible. So I definitely recommend Maus. Don't ban it. And maybe do a little more research on concentration camps and the people and the stories that went through them, because it's fascinating and heartbreaking and beautiful, and it deserves to be remembered. Alright, you guys, thank you so much for joining me for Banned Book Week, Day 2. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you have read Maus, what you thought of it. Yeah, I really liked it. I do this thing where when I'm reading a book, like I choose a certain kind of music to listen to when I read it. And I don't know why, but when I was reading Maus, I listened to like all of My Chemical Romance. I don't know why, but it worked. So, I mean, there's a recommendation for you. So, I don't know. And tomorrow's book, I listened to an all 80s playlist on Pandora. So, yeah. Alright, I love you guys so much, and I will see you tomorrow.